So this is, of course, recorded Monday. It'll be up Tuesday. Georgia takes on Georgia Tech in basketball tomorrow. Clean old-fashioned hate. It's renewed, man. And this is probably the biggest game of the year for the Dogs. Georgia is on a 2-game losing streak to Georgia Tech. They didn't play in the 2020 season. Georgia won in 18-19, and then Tech has won in 21 and 22. So Georgia is on a 2-game losing streak against the Jackets. You're definitely going to have to end that. Georgia Tech has done a lot better than I thought they were doing, and a lot better than I thought they would do, to be completely honest with you. Saturday afternoon, they got a huge win versus the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, hey, that's like winning the lottery, right? I mean, Georgia Tech beating Duke is a big deal. It really is a big deal because it does not happen often. And you never really expect it to happen. And I tell people get conflicted about Georgia Tech basketball. They're never going to be as popular as their football team, like with Georgia. But Georgia Tech has had some really good teams. I mean, going back to the 90s, their Final Four, I believe they beat LSU in the Elite Eight and then made the Final Four. Dennis Scott, I believe, was one of their players. They were really good in the 90s. I was trying to remember some of those players' names they had in the 90s. Bobby Crimmins was their head coach. I do remember that. And he was a wonderful head coach. Georgia Tech basketball roster. Yeah, this is it. They went in 1990. They went 28-7. Bobby Crimmins, that was his 9th year. Their roster: Kenny Anderson, that was his name. Kenny Anderson, Dennis Scott, Malcolm Mackey, Matt Geiger. Yeah, but Kenny Anderson was the one I remember the most. They were really good, really solid. Did they beat Georgia that year? Yes, they did, 92-89. Georgia and Georgia Tech has played a few historic games. I remember in 1991, was it 1991? I believe it was the year after they made the Final Four, so it had to be 1991. In 1991, they played out 1991. It was December 19th. They played a free overtime game. Georgia Tech went on to win 112-105. When you think about 2003, 2004, the year Georgia Tech made the Final Four, Georgia actually beat Georgia Tech the year they made the Final Four, which was oddly enough. And then of course you have the 2008 SEC tournament. A tornado hits the Georgia Dome. They have to relocate the game. They relocate the game to Georgia Tech, and then Georgia wins the SEC tournament on Georgia Tech's floor. And then, like the last few games, the 2021, Georgia Tech was great the whole game, and then Georgia made a little rally late in the second half, got as far as tying it, and then got closer. The closest they did was tie it, and then they Georgia Tech pulled away. Last year was a little different. Georgia led for a little bit of that game, for most part of the game, until the middle of the second half. Then Georgia Tech took over. Georgia will take the lead late in the game. Georgia Tech will take it back. And then, of course, the infamous charge call on Fireball. I don't believe it was a charge, but yeah, but there's that. But Georgia has to win this game. Georgia absolutely has to win this game. This game is a big deal. Georgia has to win. The month of December for Georgia is really good. Georgia should go undefeated in the month of December. You're going to have Georgia Tech, and then you're going to play High Point, Mount St. Mary's. They're going to play Alabama A&M December 30th, the same day the football team plays in the Orange Bowl. So I guess I'll be missing the Orange Bowl, and then they play North Florida, and then they already played Mercer. They played Mercer December 1st and won, so already 1-0 in December. Hopefully that win versus Florida State will propel Georgia to do better things. But Georgia Tech so far, they won their season opener versus Georgia Southern. I got to watch that game. Georgia Southern hung in there until the second half, and then Georgia Tech was on fire. I mean, Georgia Tech looked really good. They beat Howard 88-85. They lost to UMass Lowell. They lost to Cincinnati, and then really ever since that Cincinnati game, they've turned it on. I mean, they beat 21 ranked Mississippi State 67-59. I doubt they'll be number 21. But at the time, they ranked win versus number 21 Mississippi State. And then they beat Duke Saturday, 72-68. So Georgia Tech looks really good. As far as it goes for Georgia, you got the win versus Florida State. You've lost to Miami. You've lost to Providence. You've lost to Oregon even beginning of the season. You got to win this game. And you can say what you want about Tom Crean. Tom Crean was 2-1 versus Georgia Tech. In 18 they won, in 19 they won. They didn't play in 20, in 21 they lost, in 21 they lost, and then he got fired. So Tom Crean was 2-1 versus Georgia Tech. Mike White, I love Coach White, but at the end of the day, too, he cannot afford to go 0-2 versus Georgia Tech. Georgia's got to win this game tomorrow. Georgia absolutely has to win this game tomorrow. If not, then you're going to have to keep hearing about Georgia Tech, man. And, we don't like that. We got to win this game. Justin, and this is... And then the question gets pondered, does Frank Anselm deserve a starting role and a starting 5 role? I believe Frank has really turned it on the last few games. He should get in the start lineup. But in all honesty, when you have to start lineup, when you're starting Big Russ, when you're starting Jalen DeLoach, when you're starting, to get the players you've already started this year, I mean, we're already a handful of games in, you possibly could change it. I believe December, not the Georgia Tech game, but the rest of December against Mount St. Mary's, against High Point, against Alabama A&M. These should be games we try new starting lineups. Like, put Frank Anselm in the starting lineup. If we could start to put the pieces together, like we know the strengths and weaknesses of this team. The defense is definitely better than the defense last year, but at some points the offense could get on a scoring drought and then they can't recover from it. So, you could pit the dots, you could select the pieces of what this team can be, and to me that's the most important thing. That is the biggest thing to me. It's getting the starting lineup. You don't want to ruin what's not. You do not want to try to fix what's not broke. But at the same time, you do want to start with just for example, I mean, should Frank Anselm come in and play in the starting lineup because he's deserved it the last 2 or 3 games. Should Justin Hill start the game? And like for example, I mean, I believe Justin Hill is more efficient on the bench coming off as a 6th or 7th man because. Like for example, you have Noah Thomason already out there. If Justin Hill could come off the bench, I mean, you saw what he did against Florida State. He practically won the game for you. He carried Georgia on his back there for a little while with a total team effort. But Justin Hill made some hard shots in that game. But you get where I'm going with this. Jabri is one of the best players on the team. Jabri probably is the best pure shooter on the team. I would take Jabri over anybody else when it comes to shooting. He absolutely is one of the best to shoot on the team. But that's what I mean. Definitely not tomorrow. I mean, you want to roll your stuff regularly tomorrow, but you can start with against the other teams. Switch some things up and maybe it'll work, but definitely not tomorrow. Georgia's got the win tomorrow. If we don't, then it's going to suck, but Georgia can't win tomorrow. I believe Georgia will win tomorrow. I wonder if there's a spread that's come out for the game yet. We'll look at that before we stop, but Georgia's absolutely got the win tomorrow. I mean, there's no ifs or buts. You cannot lose to Georgia Tech in any sport, so there's that. You do not want to lose to Georgia Tech. Georgia has a 72% chance to win, according to ESPN, but that does not matter. It's Georgia Tech. You can flow the records out. Miles Kelly is Georgia Tech's best scorer with 18 points. He's also their best rebounder, and Kyle Sturtevant is their best assist. It's their rebound leader or assist leader. I remember those guys from last season's game. So hopefully it's not like last season's game. Hopefully Georgia could get the win. Just gotta play Georgia basketball. If Georgia plays Georgia basketball, we win this game. Very nervous about it though, man, because you don't want to lose to Georgia Tech. I mean, this is a big deal. This game truly is 100% a big deal, and you will see Georgia come on top tomorrow. So Georgia Tech 7:30 tip off. That's a little unusual. 7:05 pregame show. You can listen on the Georgia Bulldog Radio Network. Scott Howard, Chuck Dowdle, Luke Ned Carty, and Adam Gillespie will have you there. Not sure what channel it is on TV. Probably the SEC Network. But big deal. Georgia and Georgia Tech is always a big deal. In any sport, we need Stegman Coliseum to be rocking. And hopefully Georgia wins. So let's go Hoop Dogs.